going out live or are you recording?
It is live, yeah. It's
live. It is live. There we
right
go.
Now, there you go.
We are live. Congratulations. We made it.
Yes. So thank you. And greetings to Mr. Levant.
My pleasure. Happy to be anywhere. Very happy to be celebrating the 29th anniversary of the Flintstones. I actually, it caught me quite unaware. I saw something on Instagram and I said to my wife, look at this. She had 29. It seems like, no, it just seemed like we had a lovely 25th anniversary screening at the American Cinematheque in Santa Monica. It seemed like it was just yesterday, but I guess that was well before the pandemic. Now, the good old days, as we call them now, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, it kind of took me by surprise, and it makes me very happy to talk about the entire experience and more with you.
Lovely. I can't wait to hear it. So yeah, I was going to say the premiere was May 23rd, New York City.
Yes.
I'm guessing you were there.
I was there. My family was there. My kids, after we went somewhere with everybody afterwards, and my kids stole a bottle of champagne and drank it. We had a wonderful time. And I sat next to Liz Smith, who was a prominent critic in society and a very good friend of Elizabeth Taylor's. And she had written kind of a nasty piece. They screened it at Elizabeth's house and they weren't very happy. And then she saw it with an audience at the premiere in New York and changed her entire opinion about it, in a very rare thing for anyone who does criticism for a living, was to actually reverse their decision on the film, because it was a spectacular screening. And you know, the movie, we forget how successful it was. I mean, I saw that that The Little Mermaid made $118 million in its opening weekend on the Memorial Day holiday, right?
Yeah.
And that was the 5th highest Memorial Day ever. The Flintstones made $37.1 million, and we broke the record set by Indiana Jones. Not even the good one was Sean Connery. And it went on to gross $352 million worldwide, which you really don't realize how spectacular a number that is when you consider the number of movie theaters that were open just less than 30 years ago. There were less than half in the world, half in the United States. And multiplexes. You know, you didn't see cinema 16s. Maybe you saw a 5, once in a while an 8. Oh,
yeah, I know. It's ridiculous. People think.
You know, things changed so much. There was no China. There was no Russia.
Yeah, none of those markets, was there?
But the film performed spectacularly in Latin America, in Europe in particular, and in Japan, where they never had the series, mind you. The film performed very, very well. So you know, and I think in today's dollars, you know, that's well over $1 billion.
I think so. Yes, easily.
And it's still, you know, up there in some of the top grossing comedies of all time. But it's not just about the finances. It was about the opportunity for me to work at the absolute peak of the industry, and an opportunity to work alongside Steven Spielberg and his team, who were spectacular craftsmen, spectacular production minds, a talented, creative group. And it was just a privilege to try and impose my will on them. I was given a tremendous amount of leeway. Remember, I was not a very experienced film director. I basically had two meetings in the movie business in my life. One was for Problem Child 2, and I got the job, and I went and did that. And before I even finished post on that, they had a problem, and they put me on Beethoven, which was a huge success. And I had no idea what to do after that. And I'd heard that they were looking for a screenwriter. And I said to my, get my hat, throw my hat in the ring there. That would be perfect for me. And they said, no, they already got a writer. But they really didn't. But they asked if I wanted to meet as a director, which surprised the hell out of me. And after overcoming some tremendous awkwardness on my part in sitting in a room with Kathy Kennedy, who was Stephen, along with her husband Frank Marshall, Stephen's right hand, and also now she runs Lucasfilms, mind you, and they were eating lunch. They were working on the back lot, filming Jurassic Park, and we met in his office, and I finally made a case for myself as somebody with a tremendous affection for retro television. I had, revived Leave It to Beaver, whose original house was actually on the site where Stephen's office was built. It was moved to the back lot years before to accommodate that. But I was able to tell the story of someone who'd spent the past nearly 20 years in family comedy, and somebody who was watching the first episode of the Flintstones, and someone who rarely missed it, and even better, someone who collected the Flintstones. And at that point, I pulled out, this is how long ago this was, a Polaroid of my then 40, 50 pieces of Flintstone memorabilia. Very, today I know how unrare those pieces are. But that's what really hooked them, because it was somebody who had an anchor in the franchise. And then he gave me the opportunity, and he said, one thing, show me something I've never seen before. And we tried our damnedest to deliver. Here, as we just start the beginning of the film, one of the ideas that I presented in my initial meeting was to recreate the opening and closing credits of the Flintstones with Hoyt Curtin's memorable, incredible, pounding, throbbing theme song. And little did I realize that to accomplish that, it would take about 20% of our shooting schedule, about more like 20% of the budget, and 10% of the shooting days.
Right.
And it cost about $10-12 million just to do that. And in doing so, we relied on virtually every tool that a director can use in his toolbox, from the simplest things like just undercranking shots so that Fred's feet appear to go much faster than they really did when he takes off in the car, to simple things like watching him slide down the tail of the Brontosaurus. Yes, you see a stuntman on a flying rig whose feet are on a heavily Vaselined fiberglass Brontosaurus tail. But with John Goodman, you see him surfing along from the waist up, and he's just on a crane arm, and I'll get my hands we just pan it across and down a little bit, and we've maintained the illusion all the way to what would be then the longest continuous CGI shot ever attempted, which starts with the family pulling into the drive-in movie at the end of the main title.
Right.
And Puppet Dino pops out through the roof, and CGI Dino, we see him from the side there, and with a motorized 35-foot arm crane, we go right into the screen and through the Universe Shell Studios logo and through clouds shot from a Learjet into a helicopter shot at Lake Powell in Arizona, and up the side of the mountain, which transitions eventually to a 5,000 square foot model of the city of Bedrock with CGI volcanoes, and that's how we opened it. And we brought you into this world and tried to do our best to translate the world that Hanna-Barbera and their many associates did in 2D and 3D. And we were very fortunate to start with building it around John Goodman. Years before, at this point, Spielberg on his film Always, that John Goodman was in.
Oh, yeah.
Walking to lunch one day, John's walking to lunch, Steven's probably going to his trailer, and they're walking in opposite directions. And he looks at John, he says, "You should play Fred Flintstone." and which John tells me, he says to himself, "Oh, yeah, and how'd you like a knuckle sandwich?" But they gave him many millions of dollars.
That helps.
and said, "Well, eventually we're going to get there. We're going to make this movie, and you'll be in it." And so for several years they couldn't put it together.
Yeah.
Which I mean, they weren't the finest comedy people then or today. Not like places like Imagine or Focus Films, who really knew how to make a good comedy. It wasn't really their specialty. Give them, what was the tornado movie?
Twister.
They're geniuses. They're geniuses. But then again, they did the Goonies. They did the Back to the Future films. So I think it was hard for most people to get a handle on what the movie should be, on what the tone should be. And for me, that was the most obvious part of this, was that the tone was handed to you. This is a situation comedy, a very traditional situation comedy that even though Hanna-Barbera insisted that the models for Fred and Barney were Laurel and Hardy, I know, everybody knows it was Jackie Gleason and Art Carney and the Honeymooners. And basically this was, as I would always say in interviews, a sitcom on steroids.
Yeah.
And so the script that when I made a joke about they really didn't have a writer, when the guy turned in his half-assed draft, the next morning we had a meeting and Stephen tosses it in the garbage can and says, "Now what do we do?" I came from TV, and I told them quite honestly that once in a while, twice a season, if you're lucky, that you throw out your script on Wednesday night and you shoot a new one on Friday.
Right.
And I said, "You give me 2 weeks and $25,000 and I'll give you a new script." And he took the challenge.
Okay.
And we were successful. And I brought in, people with tremendous imaginations, people with a lot of experience, working tables, writers' rooms, where everyone's contributing and trying to top each other's lines and working with many minds trying to function as one and do a tremendous amount of work in a very short amount of time. And Casey Silver, when we handed him the script, he made a lunch date with me for the next day. So if everybody hated it, he would have, said nicely, "Here, enjoy have dessert. It's on me." But instead, they wanted to do the script, and so we continued, and I continued bringing in and punching up and moving forward with this, and once we really had the script, we were well evolved in building Bedrock. Now today, we forget there are 53 CGI shots
Yes.
all of this movie with the 22 creatures from the Henson Creature Shop, augmented by Mark DeBay and in the team that he ran up at Industrial Light and Magic, and and we had William Sandell, brilliant production designer, and we collaborated along with Russell Bobbitt, our property master, to design, to create, design, build, make over 6,000 props, pieces of wardrobe, cars, sets, neighborhoods, buildings. And we built in rock quarries in the overflow parking lot of Vasquez State Park, which we built the Flintstones neighborhood in. And what makes that location so incredibly unique are the tectonic plates, the things that cause earthquakes when they move, at some point violently lifted out of the ground and are stuck up vertically. And it's a beautiful, and they used it all the time in old Westerns and Star Trek.
Yes, it's famous.
You see it all the time, but you don't, I didn't realize this was this one place. And it was a perfect setting. And we shot literally in a rock quarry 5 miles north of Universal Studios. And that's it. And that's where we shot. Everything was shot there and in the immediate area of Vasquez, except for a couple shots, as I said, a helicopter shot and a Lear jet shot in the open. Other than that, everything in the Flintstones, believe it or not, was shot within the zone being the 30-mile radius from the intersection of Sunset Boulevard and Vine Street in Hollywood.
It's not far then.
No, it's amazing. And it gives you an idea of why they started making Westerns here in 1915.
Unfortunately, the tape's so well played, and it's.
You went on VHS. You should have gone on DVD.
Well, so I'll remove that anyway. Oh, it's come back.
But
yeah.
So and now and really the design process was so fun, so complicated, but so liberating. It drew on virtually all the knowledge that you possessed, literally, you know. So let's say all of our sundial watches,
yes.
Right? So they all had to be different, and Fred had to have a very common, like a Timex, very simple watch to start, and then he got a Movado, But how do you make a Movado sundial? Well, we did, and we also did, some beautiful signature, like the Hamilton Electric, which was a triangular and very 50s, very, very space age. Remember, the Flintstones was set in the middle of the space age, in the Stone Age, but it drew from the contemporary architecture.
Sure.
The way their house was decorated, the rocket shaped coffee tables and the lamps and stuff were translated from contemporary stuff into stone, bone, and rock. And that's how we translated them. Now, the creatures were another issue completely. Like I said, we designed and built 22, ranging from the 4-inch bottle opener, which I voiced. This job sucks. Kind of sounds very much like an old Hanna-Barbera character. To the 72-foot long Brontosaurus, which was built in different animatronic pieces. The neck and the tail and the hump itself, where we'd have somebody on top, was then set upon basically a railroad car. This was so big and lumbers that it only moved on railroad tracks with 12 puppeteers operating eyes, mouth, the cheeks, the tail, the eyelids, all kinds of reactions in there. And then when you saw it fully widescreen, it was a CGI Bronto. So in order for us even to build the computer models, we needed to build. And I really do mourn the loss of animatronic puppetry because it was so immediate, and these people were so incredibly talented. Everyone I ever worked with, and I did 4 films with Jim Henson's Creature Shop, which originally was on Oval Road in Camden, and this old, very, very, very cold in the winter, very old factory, were filled with like seemingly hundreds of the most creative people I have ever come across in my life, and also the sweetest and talented. And then the second movie we did with the LA Creature Shop, with a few of the people who'd been with the original, but it was a different group, and there was a difference. And it's just a shame that they weren't able to maintain that. And originally, remember, it was built when Henson did the Muppet Show in London for ITV, financed it. And then they did things like Labyrinth and things there as well. A broad range of product came out of there. And so the casting process, we had John, and Rick Moranis had been approached. Warner Brothers tried to do this years and years before. And once again, it's a good thing that nothing happened for so many years, because CGI technology came of age. Yeah. And I'll tell you a funny story. We're at the infancy, really, of especially dinosaur, bringing those to life via CGI and stuff. And I said to Spielberg in the hall, I said, "Hey, Steven, you know what would really, really help me is if I could see Jurassic Park, so I could see how those dinosaurs look and move." He goes, "No problem. You can see it on June 5th. Oh, thanks. And then I read that's opening day. So,
nice.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to show off. I got the Jurassic Park VHS here. That's coming up for its 40th anniversary this year. But in the pamphlet for the Jurassic Park, you get a little booklet, and on the back it's Flintstones coming in 1995. It says.
But 1995. My joke was AD, which you'll see on the DVD, the American DVD box.
Yes, and I think
and I believe on the poster behind you. Yes or no? Does it say AD there after the date? Now look at the poster.
Oh, that one. Yep, AD. There it is.
Yep, that's my joke. Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. That's what it is. True.
Well, we were now. Remember, I think a lot of the anticipation for the Flintstones began when we barely, at the very beginning of our rehearsals, shot a teaser for it that was attached to Jurassic Park and played right before Jurassic Park started. And if you ever see it, I'm sure it's on one of the DVD collections. Yeah. The fur that John is wearing is very un-Fred Flintstone-y. I have no idea. That was like them playing with fur or something. I don't know. But we did it, and then for great fun, John Williams, while he was scoring Jurassic, took a little extra time at the end of their session to record the Flintstones theme. Now, I knew him because we were friends with his daughter and son-in-law. Our kids
Okay.
went to school together, and so I met him in the hospital after she'd had the second baby and stuff. Yeah, but and I'd been to some of his scoring sessions, and I've never seen anybody like him. I remember we were his son-in-law, then son-in-law Jay Gruskin, brought me over to 20th Century Fox to see him score Born on the 4th of July. And he does this big war cue with many different tonal time signatures, very complicated long piece. And he does this without a click track, meaning there isn't a metronome in the ear of the musicians the way there is in 99 9/10% of every other scoring session in the world. Right. And also he doesn't use streamers, which were cues, visual cues for the conductor as to when exactly to come in with where the music changes, whatever you want to do. Works without either of those. Does this huge long cue, 7-8 minutes, right? Yeah. Usually people would break that up into 4 or 5 pieces, make it much easier, right? Do it one piece at a time. Not him. All the way through, goes into the booth, listens to it like this, gets up, switches 2 people, 2 violins, and does it again.
Bloody hell.
So he had never. Now the funny thing was, he did an amazing job of recording but he didn't know the song. He said, "I'm sure I heard it in the background when the kids were watching it." But this is a man who who worked with Irwin Allen doing Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, and the Land of the Giants, which had a thrilling theme song too. But he didn't know the Flintstones. And so, getting back to casting, Rick Moranis had been approached, and Joel Silver, who actually visited the set, came to Bedrock, and I had this first. Almost. But
he was going to do it with Donna, wasn't he?
And Moranis was still interested. Chris Farley wanted to do it. I might have made a mistake going with Moranis. I thought he'd have better chemistry with John, even though they'd done Saturday Night Live together and stuff. It just seemed like the more mature choice, especially since Barney ended up being the one with the brains in the movie. And my wife is the one who came up with Rosie O'Donnell, who'd been in $100 million movies the past 2 summers before that, and basically, people have complained about it incessantly, and I don't know why they would care how a cartoon character was built. But Rosie, and by the way, Moranis was not a fan of the decision. I was in London working at the Creature Shop, and I get a call at 2 a.m. He just heard, and he's mad. He says the only person she should be playing in this movie is Fred. But once he got on stage with her and saw the comedic talent, the timing, the teamwork, I mean, she was so good, and so let her perfect vocally and with the attitude, and it just was more fun for me to Jane Krakowski we did in the sequel, and she was amazing in a totally different way. But I just don't think you can really top what Rosie brought to the whole project, the enthusiasm and the energy and raising the comedy bar. She really did. And Elizabeth Perkins, I don't know if it's her strongest performance. In a lot of ways, she was used to being in a different kind of movie than the other guys who, she was like wanted to put on different lipstick, in between every take. And you're with people who fed on energy. You know that Rick is a Second City guy, and Rosie came up through the clubs, and John, you know, my God, John thrived in those improv situations and stuff, and so she lowered the pulse, and then for our villains, I still have a tremendous amount of guilt, really, that, you know, had we cast Christopher Reeve as Cliff Vandercave rather than Kyle MacLachlan, who I loved and did a great job, and I cast him because I thought he gave a very different flavor.
Yeah,
somebody who came from David Lynch school, you know, a little more out there choice than Superman or Clark Kent, and somewhere more of a supervillain in this. But had he been with us, he wouldn't have had that horse accident that paralyzed him. And then also David Duchovny, who'd been in Beethoven, and I loved to play basketball with, and when he came in and read, he stayed and read with all these women, and he was great every time. And it's like, what a horrible, awful choice to have to make.
Yeah.
You know, and then literally we saw every woman with a C cup or better for the role of Sharon Stone, once Sharon Stone herself passed on it.
Yeah.
Intersection, good choice. And literally, I really didn't know who to pick. And I brought all the tapes. Once again, that's how long ago this was.
Yeah.
Brought all the tapes home and watched them. And when I did that, it was just obvious that Halle Berry was really, really stood out much more. And you know, that we all know where life began, human life in Africa. So and there weren't, until like the Flintstone kind of revivals post '66, they never had any black characters. We were out to do something about that.
Okay.
And see people of all ethnicities and Cro-Magnon. We treated them equally as well. And then, you know, we talked about Kyle. Cheryl Lee Ralph, who just won the Emmy as Best Supporting Actress in a comedy, was in the film, as well as Jonathan Winters, the great comedian, and Richard Mall. Several things with Irwin Keyes, you know, who looked like a caveman. No three ways about it. You know, he had a bone disease. He's a lovely man. Irwin 88 Keyes, and playing Joe Rockwell, which was an old Flintstone name. Forgive me. I thought I disconnected this when I came in. Obviously not. But we will now.
That's all right.
There we go. No. So and the greatest impact the film had on me was the fact that it just opened the floodgates for collecting Flintstone toys. I you know, had this new computer not just been put in here and everything all wired, and I have no idea what goes where, I would have moved it into the Flintstone room so I could share with your people, you know, my thousands and thousands of Flintstone items. But it's quite a group.
It's taken off since then.
Yes, no, and you know, and I am a toy collector, and as I said, that's one of the reasons I got the Flintstones, and certainly one of the reasons I took Jingle All the Way. You know, nothing better than feathering your toy collection. Jingle All the Way, you can see it up there. There's one of many shelves devoted to Turbo Man, Booster, and other assorted Arnold characters. And you know, and last year I finally, the pandemic was a tremendous help. And I for the past 9 years I'd been working on a book of my collections, shooting. It took all the years and years to shoot everything and then put it together, and it was released last September. My Life in Toys, which really covers the a half century of collecting and a half century in Hollywood, and certainly where they overlap, like things on, like the Flintstones. And actually, in the book, it's a coffee table book the size of a coffee table.
Yes, 460 pages or something, isn't it? Full color.
484. But a lot of books are 484, but they're not. They're not a workout to carry from the bookshelf to a chair. And for instance, the Flintstones section of the book is 60 pages alone of great stuff, and a lot of and the maquettes that the characters were made from by the Creature Shop, and props, and tremendous array of original Flintstone toys, and which brings me I always like to talk about Hanna and Barbera, the creators of the Flintstones, who grew up as kids in the silent era of film. Okay. And that's what their influences are. And when you think about things like Yogi Bear and Pixie and Dixie and Tom and Jerry, they're all stories about being able to find your next meal and those who are trying to prevent you from doing so. And that really harkens back so much to Chaplin and The Little Tramp, particularly when you get into things like Modern Times, where every scene is about feeding yourself in one way or another. It's just quite astounding. And the chase scene, the Keystone Cops and Ben Turpin and things like that. Those are the influences that drove them. And when MGM disbanded their cartoon company, whatever you want to call it, their division, in I believe that's 1957, they looked at TV and kind of bit their tongues and became the kings of limited animation, meaning rather than drawing 24 frames per second, they thought they might be able to get away with 8 or less, or just have the heads move or the mouths.
Why not?
They were selling for a different audience. And starting with Rough and Ready and followed by Huckleberry Hound, they made a place for themselves in TV, and the Flintstones was a game changer. It was the first primetime animated show. It was the first animated show that told a single story over the course of an episode, rather than 4 or 5 minute chunks, with individual stories. And it was a hit, and it anchored Friday night on ABC for 6 years, and they made 187. How many of it? And it changed the company.
It did.
It did. And they followed that with the Jetsons, which was not successful. 1 season and goodbye.
Was it only 1 season? I did not know that.
They in the 80s they got around to doing another season with the original cast, who are still around, believe it or not. But I don't know why they put it. It should have been on after the Flintstones. Instead, it was on Sunday nights after Father Knows Best or something. It was just really poorly conceived that way. Happy Days needed Laverne and Shirley. The Flintstones needed the Jetsons.
That makes sense.
But I also say in the book, my Life in Toys, available wherever books are sold.
In the link.
I also say about the Jetsons that that they were uncannily right about a number of things. That we'd sit at a keyboard with giant flat screens and boy bands and robot vacuums and microwaves cooking food and competing operating systems even, right? And I say in the book, I said, perhaps it failed because we saw who we were to be and really didn't like it. God, you
know. Some truth in that, I think.
But what else do you want to talk about?
Well, there's some people in the chat that want to ask you
There's
a few
people
things.
on the chat. I didn't know there was a chat.
So got Paddy, who says, "Good evening, all. I'm Mr. Levant, and thank you for making this film and you made all of our childhoods that more nostalgic."
Oh, that's very nice. That's very nice.
There's a lot of these coming up.
Well, make sure he just buys copies for your children and grandchildren.
But he does have a question for you. Did Hanna-Barbera have a maintain creative control, or did they say to you, you can go crazy and do whatever you like with the film?
Wonderful question. Wonderful question. I'll tell you about their first visit. They did not want Hanna-Barbera to see the script.
Oh.
They wanted them to keep them out of that process. They didn't think that they'd really understand it. Well, I think they might have been right about that, because I think so let me tell you they came to Amblin, and David Kirshner, who ran Hanna-Barbera's film division, Bedrock Films, had a camera crew there, but no one ever knows what happened to the footage. Bill and Joe came to Amblin, and we had one car built, Barney's car, which we called a pencil car, even though it had to be a double pencil to put people, and it had a back seat. So I drove them across the lot in Barney's car, and we had 5 stages, 17 through 22, probably a total of close to 100,000 square feet were being utilized, building sets, costumes, cars, everything. And I brought them in, and I could tell that they expected to be disappointed.
Oh.
And then when they got inside and they saw the scale, they saw the authenticity, they saw how their world had been translated lovingly, accurately, and with humor and vigor. And they loved it. All of a sudden, you started seeing these old married couple looks between them, these little smiles. And I said, when we showed them the Flintstones bathroom, Bill Hanna said, "There's something missing here." I go, "What's that, Mr. Hanna?" He goes, "Toilet paper." and I said to Russell Bobbitt, our prop master, I said, "Russell, please get us a roll of birch bark." And when we finally went through all 5 stages and everybody there, hundreds of people literally working there, and every one of them couldn't believe that Hanna-Barbera were there, and appreciating everything everyone was doing there. It was such a huge moral lift. Morale, just tremendous. And then we finally stepped outside, and Joe Barbera shakes his head, and he says, "Never in my life did I ever expect to see anything like that." And I told him, "We're just getting started," and we were.
Yes, I certainly did. So let's see. Pure Hangouts here. He says, "The Flintstones is a fantastic film. I remember being wowed in the cinema when seeing the trailer before Jurassic Park. The entire theater sang along to the theme."
That's exactly. I can probably take credit for that, although it might have been Kathy Kennedy, but I think that might have been my. I at least said the bouncing rock. Thank you. No, good people remember that.
Yes. His dad collected all the Flintstones collectible glass mugs that McDonald's released, and he still has them to this day.
Well, they're excellent because they are glass mugs, and they can hold coffee, and they don't get hot. You can put them in the microwave. We use them all the time here.
Oh,
when
nice.
company comes over, we take out the Flintstone ware.
The fine china gets left behind.
Yeah, and the Happy Days glasses,
Yes. The Trash Picture Show, he says, dude, he loved this flick growing up. You did a fantastic job.
Why, thanks. That's very nice to say. I think that what people have to remember is that it never would be made the same way today. You never would make the whole world.
At the end.
You would make doors and floors, and that's about it.
Yes,
and you wouldn't have the talented Henson puppeteers. You wouldn't. You would basically everything was built out of sprayed foam over wire and wood frames, and then carved, hard coated, and painted, and a massive operation. But it was basically very lightweight. And when we did the sequel, I begged the studio to build Rock Vegas so it could be moved on the lot and replace Spartacus Square. A lot of 8-year-olds know Spartacus today, huh?
I'm Spartacus.
It was so visual and dynamic. It would have been a great addition to the tour, but they didn't do it. They were short-sighted in that. But I find movie studios to be short-sighted in general. And that's why they don't have theaters anymore. Yeah.
Well, they lost out on everything, didn't they? So got the Arachnerd. He says he'd just like to thank you. He used to watch reruns of the movies so much as a kid, and it gave me hours of enjoyment. So thank you.
Okay, well, I spent some time reading a book too.
Yes, the link is in the chat.
Well, you end up like me with 10,000 toys, and you can't quote Great Gatsby.
And so Marty's going to pick up your book. He's a fellow toy collector.
Go to Amazon. It's the cheapest there.
It is.
It's the cheapest there. You won't regret it. I promise you. And I'll tell you what. Go back to that guy. Go back to that guy for a minute. All right.
Okay.
If you hit me up on Instagram and tell me you're the guy who bought the book here, and we'll send you a special treat if you send me your address, or your mailing address. Okay.
There you go.
All right. Next. The same guy again. All right.
Were you in any conversations to bring other Hanna-Barbera characters to the screen?
Yes.
Rumors of Jetsons. We would create rumors of Jetsons.
Well, I always wanted to do the Jetsons and had what I thought was a wonderful Jetsons story. Warner Brothers wouldn't let me near them. Joe Barbera wanted me to do the Jetsons very much. And notice that they still haven't done it.
Yes.
Yeah, and the story I always had was that George realizes that the world that he's living in isn't very good, and starts holding rebellious views. And they have him reprogrammed and stuff. He goes back to his family. They bring him back to himself, and he ends up leading the rebellion against the status quo.
Okay.
And now Scott Alexander and Larry Karaszewski, two of our finest screenwriters, also did a script at one point with the Jetsons where they actually moved from space back down to the Earth and had to learn to survive.
Okay.
It didn't, if you can do the Jetsons and you take away the rocket ships, you don't have much. It is my observation,
Yeah, that is
once
true.
Again, they wouldn't let me near it. And I did remember two Scooby-Doo films.
Okay.
For the Cartoon Network, live action CGI, with a tremendous young cast. I mean, 16-year-old Haley Kiyoko and 20-year-old Robbie Amell. These kids kicked ass, and I would have loved to. We actually had 2 more scripts, in addition to the 2 that we did, and I seriously, I would have loved to keep making films with those kids. They were so hardworking, and they did such great jobs. And I wasn't a big Scooby-Doo. I was a huge Flintstones fan. All right. But Scooby-Doo, now, to be very honest, In 1969, when Scooby-Doo started, I had a driver's license. I had a girlfriend. I was in a Saturday morning basketball league. I wasn't sitting in front of the set every Saturday morning glued to it the way I was when I was 9.
Yes.
So I did, and I always thought it was kind of silly, and I never could remember everyone's names. But then I heard that they wanted to do, and this was they wanted to do young Scooby-Doo, and I had been offered the features by Chuck Roven, the producer, that and the Batman films, and I didn't like the story. And I said, well, couldn't they just meet on a ride board, which is, how people got rides to like spring break with each other in the old days. and they end up people who don't know each other in a van with a crazy guy and his Great Dane, and they encounter a mystery and they have to and they solve it and become a team.
Yeah.
And he goes, can't you wrap your head around this story? I said, no, not really. And they went and made it with that story, and they had a lot of trouble with parents over stealing children's souls. That wasn't a good thing for mom and dad to see. But anyway, so when the opportunity arose that they wanted to do Young Scooby-Doo, I basically did it the way I envisioned it in that meeting, quite off the top of my head, and used a lot of youth film touchstones, like The Breakfast Club, in wrapping it around Scooby-Doo, and I love both films we did. Some of the best work of my life, considering they flirted with releasing them theatrically, but the Cartoon Network really wanted them. If they was good, they wanted it. And so they tested it, and we tested identically to the theatrical films. Our film cost $8.2 million.
Right.
The feature film cost 120. And
I don't know where that money went.
Audiences found them quite equal.
Yeah.
And that said a lot about it. Like I said, I would have loved to do more with them. But I once in a while I say to myself, well, hell, I could do a great Western parody with Huckleberry Hound.
Yeah.
What was that? It was a remake, 510 to Yuma. You got to take a prisoner to get him to meet a train, and I think it would be a great Huckleberry Hound, maybe a Quick Draw McGraw guest star.
Yeah, I was thinking like Snagglepuss, but yeah, Quick Draw McGraw's perfect, isn't he?
Well, Snagglepuss used to show up in the Old West too. Usually as like a gambler. So what else?
That was one of my questions. Is we haven't heard much from the Flintstones recently. In any format.
Well, there is in America coming up is Bedrock, the new animated grown-up Pebbles series.
Okay.
From, what's her name? Who's the woman she's a filmmaker? She used to be an actress. She did the singing movies. She did Cocaine Bear.
Oh yes. Drawing a blank myself now, but yeah, I know who you mean.
I'm old. You have no excuse.
I'm not that far behind you.
Anyways, I don't know what to expect from that.
Yeah,
I approached the Cartoon Network many years ago about doing a CGI Flintstones series and using as models the maquettes that Hanna-Barbera made for Viewmaster and their 1962 Flintstones Viewmaster reels.
Right.
Which were just beautiful. They built the sets, they built the maquette, just beautiful design. And at that time I heard, well, I'd love to do that, except we just made a deal with Seth MacFarlane to do the Flintstones. My friend David Goodman, who did Family Guys for many years, said Seth thinks he wants to play Barney.
Right.
But that went away, and then I heard Will Ferrell was going to do a CGI Flintstones movie, but that never happened either.
Yeah.
So and they haven't done Lego Flintstones, so I don't know. You see the response at the 50th anniversary of Pebbles cereal.
Yeah, that's the
and you realize that Flintstone Vitamins was born out of a partnership that began in September of 1960 with Miles Laboratories, the makers of One-A-Day vitamins. You realize kind of the strength and longevity of the characters. Like Popeye, they're no longer in the world that created them. They've become a brand unto themselves, and the audience doesn't know the characters as well as they used to. So I think it would be great to remind people in some way. In the meantime, we have the 1994 state-of-the-art film that we can all enjoy, and it really was a joy, and there wasn't one detail of the film that I left to other people. It literally everything went through me, and it is pure an individual vision of mine that's ever made it to the screen in every respect. And I couldn't be more proud of it. And the fact that we're still talking about it. And, the following weekend, City Slickers 2 came out. Are you doing City Slickers 2? You're getting Billy out of no. I'm just saying.
No, I forgot about that.
I've noticed that, a lot of films have come and gone.
Yes.
And a couple of mine seem to stick around, and that's a great thing. Number one, because the Flintstones finally went into profits. 25, 30 years later, and I get a taste, but a taste, not even a spoonful, a taste. Like someone says, how did is this? Like hot soup. That's enough. But it's a wonderful thing, and when you look at it, the careers that came out of this in so many areas, the names that you see on the Marvel movies and stuff, there's a lot of them on the Flintstones. These are just top people, and Michael Lantieri, who won the Oscar for Jurassic Park for physical effects, did an amazing job on Flintstones. And once again, ILM, the only collaboration between ILM, Amblin, and the Henson Company, which is a shame because it was a good pairing on a lot of levels. But even on the second movie, though, they said ILM's too expensive. Get someone else.
You have double the budget, though.
Well, the second, we haven't talked really about why we had planned. Amblin had planned after the success of the first film to shoot like Back to the Future, Flintstones 2 and 3, back to back with the same crew and the same cast.
Right.
And we started moving in that direction, and John Goodman put a halt to it. He went to Stephen, and I suspect from everything I heard that too many people were coming up to him in airports and going yabba dabba doo.
Yeah.
And he said to Stephen, "Please don't make me do another one of these." And Stephen said, "Okay." And so we pivoted and we did the prequel. And Stephen actually, when we first screened it, he said, "I think you made a better movie." I disagree, but but once again, the design process was so exhilarating to build again on that scale, to have more musical numbers, to have to build incredibly huge, beautiful sets, and to try and raise the bar on our creature work, our cars, our costumes. It was a much more glamorous film. Bedrock is very blue collar.
Yes.
Place. You get to Vegas and we went crazy.
Yeah, but imagination went crazy. I bet, yeah.
But the colors are so dynamic and beautiful, and and like I said, I love Jane Krakowski. I think that what's her name, Johnson, Kristen Johnson, who had won the Emmy the year before as best actress in a comedy series for Third Rock from the Sun. Had a tremendous potential, and I think that she got ahead of her skis for a long time, and now seems to have found much more solid footing as a performer. I think it was very difficult for her to become a lead on a project of that magnitude at that point in her life. And Stephen Baldwin, I really wanted Steve Zahn. Steve Zahn just couldn't kind of commit to being a cartoon character and trying to do the voice.
Okay,
and all these female execs and stuff. We love Stephen Baldwin. It was a mistake. He wasn't committed to much of anything, really. But the movie I did with Arnold Schwarzenegger, for instance, he showed up on the first day and he knew every line in the script of his and everybody else's. He memorized the script.
Okay.
And Stephen Baldwin would show up every morning and go, "Hey, boss, what are we shooting today?"
Oh, right.
So there's a difference in professionalism.
Yeah.
Some I heard someone do a joke years ago. They said when told that Stephen Baldwin had found God, he said, "Really? I can't believe he even found an agent." And Mark Addy was a delight and worked very hard on the accent, an American accent. Worked with the woman who helps every great British actor speak like they grew up in Canarsie. And he was very, very good, but the film never caught fire with the audience, and which was sad. And Alan Cumming as both Gazoo and Mick Jagged did exemplary work, and it was very, very creative work.
Okay.
And I'm sorry it because I would have liked to have done more with the Flintstones. I could have gone like Scooby-Doo. There is something that was so amazing about working on those projects that, and I understand in a way, if you're a pop culturist like I am, and a toy collector, and someone who dwells far too much in the past, in the entertainment of the past, this was like doing Shakespeare for me. No, you give me the classics. I'll do Hamlet with a woman. I'll do. And you don't receive those kind of projects that challenge you in so many ways.
Okay.
I mean, both physically in trying to be the leader of a company that's shooting in 120-degree heat in the bottom of a quarry in the middle of the summer, and, and and challenges you like physically so much just to get through the day, and then all the creative challenges and the opportunities to engage in all this new technology to see what you could do and to deliver to Steven Spielberg, quote, something that he'd never seen before. And he, he's, when we first showed him the film, before we showed Hanna-Barbera, he sits in front of you, so you can't, and he turns around before he goes, I never laugh in these things. Oh, thanks.
Yeah, good to know.
He did laugh. He did.
Okay.
And when it ended, he jumped up and turned around and said, "I love it. Don't change a thing." He was wrong. We needed a little sculpting and polishing.
Oh, okay.
Just a little. No, nothing major. But because of what he said, we went to the first preview. And said, Steven said not to change anything. Well, we could have done a little more.
Because I got a because in the UK the film is a U certificate, so that means anyone can see it. So it's a child friendly, no matter what age they are.
It is. It should have been rated G instead of PG.
But
I don't know. We had no scary dinosaurs.
Yeah, but do you think this, since like the 90s, we've had no such family entertainment as these films?
Well, here's the thing, that for many years, myself and many other people made mid-budgeted family films. That marketplace, with a few exceptions, has been taken over by CGI animation. And those are the family films today. And there are, but when the Flintstones was around, there weren't any. Right?
Yeah.
And it's not till, well, that's not true. What year was Toy Story? Toy Story was 90. What year was
95,
it?
96, yeah.
Okay, so shortly after Flintstones,
right.
Everything changed. And there was only Pixar, and then there's Blue Sky, and then there's Illumination and DreamWorks. Yeah. And suddenly that market, which lends itself to merchandising and marketing, right? And plays to a 4-quadrant audience, has become the dominant family entertainment. Not films like Beethoven or Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, another great example of a high concept, well-performing, well-made family film from Disney. Actually, funny thing about when we made Beethoven, after we looked at it the first time, Ivan Reitman, the executive producer, said, "My first note is to put a Disney logo on the film." Universal.
That would work. No one would notice.
So what else do you need? What else you want to talk about?
I got a question from hang on, Dr. Impossible. Had you not been able to work in the film industry as director, producer, etc., what career path would have been attracted to?
I worked initially towards journalism and being a writer, and I wrote for my city paper. I wrote for my high school paper. I wrote for I was the editor of my camp newspaper. You laugh. The guy who did there was two of those a week. The other guy was Scott Simon from NPR, and the guy who we replaced when he left camp went on to win Pulitzer Prizes with the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. This was a job for people who were very serious about journalism. But at the same time, when I started that, I also started making Super 8 films.
Ah.
Yeah, and I also, did a lot of artwork and classes and stuff, and enjoyed that. And I realized that my spelling was second rate, but my ideas were first rate.
Okay.
There was a fork in the road at one point, and I went to film. I think advertising would have
Okay.
been a decent enough home for me as it was for people like John Hughes early in his career. And there was a lot of that in Chicago, where I was from. And members of my family work in that industry. My mom, my sister, her husband. It's that you can build a nice life that way.
Okay.
But I think I found the ideal life for me, and I was very fortunate that I took advantage of opportunities when they were presented to me and followed through and stuck with them. And I was also lucky that the great opportunities didn't come along until I really knew what I was doing after 17, 18 years, working on and running successful series.
Right. Right. Well, let's just take two more things. So, Robert McCall from The Equalizer says, he liked the song in the film, was great. It was a big hit in the UK. I remember that being around everywhere.
Yes. No, I don't remember whose idea it was for the B-52. I was the one who came up with the BC-52s.
Right.
And it was great because Don Was, produced the Rolling Stones, Dinosaur Jr., worked on it, and then he had to go off and do something with the Stones. So what's his name from Chic? Bernard Edwards came on, and he finished it up. And so I got to hang and work with these guys on this. And, went to a party at Don Was's house, and there's guys from the Doors, and everybody's barefoot, and God knows what they were doing in the back room. But it was a great opportunity, and we made a pretty damn good soundtrack album. And although I know the theme was more successful overseas than in the U.S., but at one time they thought it was the first, quote, novelty hit of the SoundScan era.
Right.
And then we actually, for Viva Rock Vegas, we actually got Anne Margaret, or Anne Margrock, as she was called when she did the Flintstones in 1963,
right.
to record Viva Rock Vegas for us. And remember, she was in Viva Las Vegas with Elvis, and they had an affair. And we also, and it was her idea, and I loved it, of getting James Burton, Elvis's old guitar player, to play the lead on it as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. She just came out with a rock and roll album at 82 or 82.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was trying to work out.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think, right. Well,
before we go, we shot a video with the B-52s.
Right.
And Lorraine Newman from Saturday Night Live and the cast was in it, and the B-52s. And I'm sorry, I don't remember her name. The woman in the B-52s, the other woman whose brother was in the band was no longer with the band at that point. She's since rejoined, but she didn't know how to compete with these actors who had all this charm and all these weapons that they could throw at their performances. My God, you entertain 70,000 people at a time. Come on, lady.
Concert.
But it was great fun. We did all kinds of fun things, like parroting the old Bob Dylan video where all the words are on the cards that you're dropping with big rock things. we dressed our Cro-Magnons to be in the audience. It was a great fun video, and I hope it sold some albums. I hope so.
I think it did. Yeah, I don't remember it being in the charts. It was definitely in the charts in the UK anyway. So we'll have Marty's question, and then
yes, sure.
Go from there. Do you think the success of Jurassic Park and the dinosaur craze, which Marty is very much a dinosaur craze, prior year helped with getting the film out there? Your film out there?
Once again, I don't think it was the initial plan, but the fact that it was able to follow Jurassic Park a year later and capitalize on people's, oh my God, there's dinosaurs. Now we're going to have, we got man-eating dinosaurs and gentle dinosaurs. Now we're going to see them, as your garbage disposal.
Mowing the lawn.
And steam shovels, and without Jurassic Park, Flintstones would not have been what it was. So once again, this confluence, I said, I was interviewed about a pilot I did called Puchinsky, which I'm terribly embarrassed of, which seems to be a big hit on YouTube. And this was a project that had success written all over, but was undermined by so many things that you had nothing to do with. And I say that sometimes failure is a result of so many unintended consequences, but by the same token, success is often the beneficiary of the same kind of winds, just blowing in the opposite direction. Yeah. And the fact that you could do really good dinosaurs and that you could make the saber-toothed Flintstones baby puss, there's saber-toothed tiger cat who appears in like 4 shots in the movie, but they had to develop fur for the first time.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have been able to do that, 6 months before. and that same technology was used in Monsters Inc. For John Goodman character. Again. They got really good fur by then. So it's all these things, and the fact that by the years after they acquired the rights and tried to launch it, that I had moved into features and made films for Universal, where I'd done 177 episodes of television, where I was a known commodity to the studio and somebody that was trusted at the upper echelons of the studio, the Lou Wassermans, the Sid Sheinberg. They knew me. I had opened their studio in Florida. I had nursed their first cable show and their first syndicated series, and they knew I was responsible, and they knew I delivered.
Yeah, nice. Okay, right. So I'll just put the link again for your book in the chat, so anyone can take it out. So just to end this up, well, look, I bought some animated Flintstones VHSs out that I have. Apart from being on TV in the morning.
And there's Anne Margrock.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Holding pebbles.
Yeah. I have to say, because, she's there. So, what we got here? Got Yabba Dabba Doo.
Oh, yes. That was an ABC 1-hour special that aired in like 92 or 94. What's the year on that?
Sometimes I don't know the dates. That's in Roman numerals. Yeah, 93, I think it is.
Yeah.
So, that
was the last, really the last, the really last gasp of the Flintstones in prime time.
And then a Christmas Carol version.
Christmas Carol is not, I prefer Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol, to tell you the truth. I really do. If you've never seen Mr. Magoo's, I think it's vastly superior. But they also did. They did a lot of albums with the original cast as well, and doing stories, and some of them are very bad. But I highly recommend, if you can find it, the original cast singing the Flintstones theme.
Oh,
that's a real treat.
That is probably going to be rare.
Mel Blanc. What's the Flintstones comedy show? Oh yeah, with the Shmoo. With the Shmoo.
Yeah, I was going to say there's the Shmoo.
People may not know the Shmoo was created in Little Abner by Al Capp, and I don't know how Hanna-Barbera ended up with the Shmoo. The Shmoo was an object that you used to vanquish. You could kick it, spit on it, do it, burn it, whatever you wanted. It was there. It was there to absorb your anger,
right,
and negativity. I don't know what it's doing with Fred and Barney, these happy people.
No, what's that? Just 2 episodes on here for all your pennies.
That's a ripoff. Flintstones Flyer. Flintstones Flyer is.
Oh yeah.
I believe that's like the 2nd episode of all time. That may be unlicensed. What you have there, young man.
But I hide that. Last one.
Last one, the Big Bang, the Snorkosaurus. The Snorkosaurus is okay. Yeah. The fact that I know these episodes by title is quite disturbing.
Educational.
I'm always glad to see new Flintstone toys because I'm still feathering the nest 4,000 or 5,000 pieces in. But you know what amazes me though is I have a great Flintstones collection, and there's people who put me to shame.
I know, it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. There's
always something better than there are more.
I'll tell you very quickly, then we should get on. But when we moved onto our street, there's only 13 houses on the street, and at the end of the street is a guy who had amazing collections of computers, cars. His wife collected all these things. And they invited us over to look at their collections, and I was dumbstruck. The guy had a private museum, 4,000 square feet, with just his dinky toys, and so humble. And his wife's, "Oh, Brian, no, you have a lovely little collection." They were English.
Okay, let them off. Right. Well, thanks for Mr. Levant for sharing all these stories with us, and thanks to everyone in the comments. So,
thank you all for showing up. Thank you. We'll talk again. Remember, next year, it's the 30th anniversary. Maybe we'll do it again.
Why not?
We'll do Viva. Viva,
that must have an anniversary soon.
And only 4 years till the Jingle All the Way 30th.
Okay. No problem. I'll put it in my diary.
All right. My dogs want dinner. I have to go. All right.
All right. You take care. Thanks for joining me.
And have a yabba dabba do time. Go on. I'm checking out.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right. Thanks for that. Thanks, Mr. Levant. And thanks for everyone that joined me tonight, late as it is, or early in the US. And I might see you tomorrow for Jaws 2 watch party in the pool. So